Hi guys, as the collapse of the UK and wider Western civilization continues unabated, we should think how we can prepare for the coming problems. Now, I believe everybody should be prepared in some ways. I've done some previous videos on this before. I really started getting into not full-scale preparations. I think this is just being prudent. I'm not a full-on prepper. I don't have, tons and tons of food stored away, prepared for Armageddon. But this is prudent steps I believe everybody should take that I've been taking since the 2008 financial crisis. I think what we're living in today is just an echo of the mistakes and problems they made. Zero interest rate policy, QE. In my opinion, it's actually quite amazing that we've got away like 14 years after they started making economically insane decisions. 14 years. I see myself and all of us as blessed that this huge collapse didn't come sooner. So I've just been putting basic provisions in place since 2008. Just obvious stuff that you'll hear in every other video and we've talked about before, so I won't talk too much about those. That's just having source of water secured, various filtration, however you do it, just extra tins and cans of food in your pantry, dried foods, pasta, rice, medical supplies, a first aid kit, things that are really important to think about, like soap, shower gel. I think there was a reason why when we went into the lockdowns that toilet roll kind of flew off the shelves, and that's because that didn't just happen by accident. I don't believe there is deeper psychological reasons for that. If you read how hyperinflations take place, when there's huge shortages in economies, when this has happened throughout history, when people live through those times, besides just the basic necessities like food and heat, people really desire just being clean, like just having a warm shower, just the ability to wipe your bottom. That goes a long way. And if you've ever been in the army, if you've ever even spent long periods of time traveling, just going for a crap on a porcelain toilet, that can mean a whole lot to you, having the ability to wipe your bottom, to get a warm shower. So hygiene is really important. I believe that's why toilet roll flew off the shelves in 2020. And these are things that you don't want to have like a trillion toilet rolls in your house, but there's certain things that you can predict will fly off the shelves. It's going to be food, water, medical supplies, toilet rolls, things like this. These all make sense to have, stored away at least a moderate amount to insulate you. We get cold winters in the UK, or the first time there's a snow. We're not used to cold winters, so when it is cold, people just panic buy. This happens throughout history, so it makes sense to have some of these things. But now when we look forward to the energy crisis we're in, the inflation crisis, which has been obvious this is going to be happening. The energy crisis isn't just because of the war in Ukraine. This was happening before that. I spoke about that on these kind of videos, how this was obvious over a year ago that energy was going to become a big problem. It's not just Putin's price hike. This is fundamental mistakes, or if you believe it's a mistake or you believe it's intentional, it doesn't really matter. But this is an obvious consequence of decisions politicians and eco-mentalists have been making over years and decades. So we're heading into an energy crisis. I want to focus specifically on that, on being prepared in the UK. And if you're in basically a Western or English speaking country, it's probably something that's going to affect you soon. So first off, this is something I would really recommend, just a power inverter. This is a 300 watt one, but this is just basically just an Amazon cheap Chinese one. So 300 watt, take that with a pinch of salt. I'd probably only really try and power stuff that's about 150 watts, or whatever the nominal headline wattage figure is. It's got a 3-pin socket, obviously, because this is the UK. You can get other ones with European, North American plugs on them, but we have the superior 3-pin socket in the UK, so that's fitted with that. It has the cigarette lighter, 12 volt cigarette lighter lead on it at the moment. But if you get one of these power inverters, which I highly recommend considering we're going into a period where rolling blackouts are probably going to be quite likely in the UK. If it's not winter this year, i.e. 2022, 2023, there's very, very likely going to be big problems next winter. So the winter of 22, the winter of 23 going into 24. Big problems, I believe. There's not really much they can do about that anymore unless they make amends with Russia and somehow fix these blown up pipelines. It's not really going to happen. So next year, if we get away with this winter, there'll be big problems next year. So a power inverter, these are still cheap. I think I paid like 25 quid for this. But you want to get the one that also has battery terminal leads. So these just obviously crocodile style clips, put these on a 12-volt battery. If you have the budget, leisure batteries are ideal. I just have a few 12-volt lead acid car batteries, which aren't ideal because they can't be fully discharged and charged from a very low percent back up, top them up. That's not good for a lead acid battery. But my intention with this is just to power basic things around the house. Just put one lamp on. If you're living through a power cut, I lived in Turkey for a year. Rolling power cuts were commonplace there. It's a third world issue, and as the UK rapidly becomes third world, these are issues we should expect to have third world lifestyles. When you live in these kind of more ramshackle countries where there are power cuts, just sitting in the dark is all. If you could just have this just to power one lamp in your house, that's all you need. In our living room, we very rarely use the overhead light. I don't think many people do in the UK. They just kind of use a lamp in the corner, just low light, soft lights, and that's very nice. When everybody else has got their lights off and they live in by candlelight or torch, just a power inverter connected to a 12-volt battery. You can run an LED lamp for hours off a car battery, and as long as you charge it next time the power's back on, you want to get yourself a trickle charger or just a 240 volt to 12 volt charger, and charge that battery up when you get the chance. That's going to make things a lot more bearable. Other things you can do with this, obviously charge your phone, charge your laptop. Phones and laptops will be a good source of entertainment when the wider power grid is down. Broadband's down, we stream, we don't watch terrestrial TV, everything's streamed. So when the power goes down, the broadband's going to be out, and just the ability to watch stuff on a laptop, on a phone, that's going to be ideal. Another trick you could do with this, which I chose not to because our plan for heating our house in the future is through the open fireplace, which we're recommissioning at the moment. The house was built with 2 open fireplaces. They were bricked up during the 70s or 80s. We're recommissioning those. That's going to be our main source of heat if the central heating boiler goes down. But another thing you could do is if the natural gas supply, if the mains gas is still up, but the power is down, you obviously need electricity to power your boiler. You could have this as a way of powering your boiler. Now you're going to probably want to put a 3-pin plug on the power supply to your boiler and have the ability to plug it in here. It means you're going to have to put in a wall socket as well for your boiler. So where the power currently comes from your condensing boiler at the moment, it's probably going to be straight out the wall, or it may go through into a junction box. You're going to have to change that, have a wall socket and a 3-pin plug. Then you can unplug that, and that's going to give you the ability to heat your house with central heating when the gas is off. So these are very, very useful. I'd highly recommend picking yourself up one of these while the prices are still quite cheap, because as we go into more of a crisis, people are going to start thinking about these things, and it's going to be invaluable. Pick yourself up some cheap batteries. Facebook Marketplace, you can pick car batteries up, £10-20. So I would really make this as a really valuable thing to go and pick yourself up. You also need to be thinking how you can cook in situations where the power grid is down. I really like these cheap eBay rocket stoves. They're very efficient. They just need a few twigs and they'll give you enough heat to boil a saucepan of water. With a saucepan of water, if you have a large thermos flask, you can put rice or pasta in there with the boiling water and that will cook those. You can also soft boil eggs in a thermos flask with boiling water. That's a very useful resource to be able to cook, dried foods in if the electricity and or gas is down. As well as that, I did a video previously on the IKEA £1 stove. It really doesn't cost much to just protect yourself and the ability to cook when that grid may be down. So when the power's down, you may find yourself in the garden, boiling water, cooking things with a frying pan. So if you think about these things now, you can really insulate yourself from what other people will have to unfortunately be going through, those people that haven't prepared. Besides that, torches are good. They have a sort of a lower power one here and then a much higher power one here. This one's great for like security. If you can shine this, if it's kind of, it's a standard trick that bouncers use. You can shine this into someone's eye. It's got strobe effect. That's enough to scare someone away from your property. You live in the UK where self-defense is a very difficult thing to achieve. And a low power one just for more sensible stuff. This is much better just around the garden. Cash makes sense. If the power goes down, you want to be able to buy stuff. Your plastic card isn't really going to be much use if the power's down. Tradable things, batteries, bottles of whiskey, we've talked about these things before. Books are going to be invaluable. If you've got kids, board games, just anything you can do to make your life easier. As we're kind of in a proxy war situation now, essentially with Russia, and China's obviously a very, very close ally of Russia. Things like this may, in the future, depend on how the proxy war plays out with the West versus Russia, China. Things like this are obviously just made in China, may become more scarce as sanctions bite down, as China may or may not choose to impose sanctions back on the West. Cheap tap that's made in China like this may become more difficult to get hold of. So that's just a few things I wanted to talk about. To make your life easier, you need to think about your own life and what you can do to make it as comfortable as possible, especially if you have kids, especially if you have like a wife to look after and people that depend on you. Thinking now what you can do to make your life easier will make it easier in the long term. And say we may get away with it this winter with the gas still up, with the power still up, maybe, maybe not, especially gets to February, March, depends how cold the winter is. But certainly going forward in future years, it's going to get quite difficult, and inflation isn't going to go away. If inflation does go down, it's only going to go up in the longer term. Look at what real inflation is. Go trueflation.com. Real inflation in the UK is probably just shy of 20%. It's a lot higher than the government, Richie Rish Sunak will have you believe. So that's my thoughts and opinions today, guys. Let me know how you're preparing. It's a difficult one, but it should be forefront of all of our minds. That's me signing off today. Good luck and Godspeed, as always. With a bit of preparation, we'll all get through this. Times might be rough for a little bit, but we'll always get through it. Thanks for watching this video. See you next time.